gotta let me show ya. Nigeria, Bioko Island, Liberia, I wanna know ya. Cameroon, Guinea-Bissau, Sierra Leone, gotta let me show ya. Nigeria, Bioko Island, Liberia, I wanna know ya. Let it all hang out. DNA brings cigar people out. The artistic, so gifted. African ancestry gets it. Yes, they black owned for the people. In the roots, they will find your sequel. Genetic test in the process, peaceful. Reunite, multiply with your equals. Black scientists, research it. Invest in that time, you're worth it. Experience feels so perfect. Get on the right path to your purpose. No other in the industry like this. Find your link to a tribe, precise kit. The Mende people, Mendenga, Volanta, the house. I wanna know ya. Cameroon, Guinea-Bissau, Sierra Leone, gotta let me show ya. Nigeria, Bioko Island, Liberia, I wanna know ya. Cameroon, Guinea-Bissau, Sierra Leone, gotta let me show ya. Nigeria, Bioko Island, Liberia, I wanna know ya. AfricanAncestry.com, the pioneers in genetic tracing for black people. Since 2003, doing what no other in the industry can do. By tracing your DNA to the present day African country, ethnic group, or tribe. What better time than now to find out where you came from? Order your kit today.
Hey, order your kit today. What's up, y'all? How you doing? It's Gina. I'm Gina Page, president, co-founder, CEO, I don't know, all those titles of AfricanAncestry.com. We are the pioneers of genetic ancestry tracing for Black people around the world. And you've heard me say it time and time again, we are on a mission to transform the way we view ourselves and the way we view Africa. And we do that every day, all day, using your DNA. I'm a rapper now. That was my rhyme. What's up? How y'all doing? Everybody's here tonight. Nikki T is in the house. Hello. Danielle, welcome. Nisha's here. Jonathan, Sierra Leone. Jonathan, did you know we were in Sierra Leone? Beatrice is here from Alabama. Vito, Alabama. Welcome, Beatrice. Sandra's here. We got Naya Smith's in the house. Sophia's here. Antoinette. We got some Ghanaians in here. Devante, you are welcome. Sandy. Karen's in the house. Angela. Oh my goodness, I love it. Sarah, LA. Mabrini, of course, joins us every week. Hello and welcome. Thank you for being here, Carolyn. Mary Smith, I saw your email. Congratulations to you. I'm so happy to see all of you here. You all must be friends of our guests. I don't know. I'm seeing all these new names. Charles Murphy. Shout out to Charles Murphy, who I met in person in Sierra Leone last week. We are going to do a special show about Sierra Leone. I think we're going to do it next week. See if I can't get some of the people who were on the trip to come join us and talk about their experiences. It's one thing for me to tell you. It's an entirely other thing for you to hear it from them. So there were 60 African ancestry family members who traveled in different groups to Sierra Leone to receive citizenship. That's what happens when you take an African ancestry test. You trace your ancestry to the Mende people or the Temini people or the Limba people in Sierra Leone. You can go home and get citizenship. Those people came home with Sierra Leonean passports. It was a life-changing experience, and we were honored to be there and to witness it. And I would be remiss if I didn't shout out people like Fode and Shavana and PC Hawa, who were among the first. They're really the ones who paved the way for African ancestry family members to receive citizenship. And so these weren't the first 60 people. 2 other groups had done it. Groups of people had gotten passports before, but we're picking up steam and we're going back in November. So if you haven't taken a test, you might want to trace your ancestry with us, because you might come back from Sierra Leone and can go home and get a passport. And if you are part of the Mende family or the Temini family or the Limba family, check out travel.africanancestry.com, because we are gearing up for our next trip in November. Shout out to Diallo Sumbri and to Wendi Cherry, who helped hold it down for the travelers who participated in the African Ancestry Family Reunion. They were invaluable in making sure that everyone had an amazing experience. Shout out to you, Angela. So I see Danielle's like, I want that in Nigeria. And Devontae's asking, can it happen in Ghana? We aren't there yet. We're starting with Sierra Leone. Give us some time. We're working on it. But again, it wasn't us. So feel free to start planting those seeds, and we'll be right there with you to help make it happen. Moncom wants to know about Cameroon. We're working on Cameroon. You know, we started going to Cameroon 11 years ago. And so we're hopeful that Cameroon will come on board. I do know that Burkina Faso has decided to offer citizenship to people who've traced their ancestry with us. So if we've got any Burkina Bay descendants here tonight, you guys are next up, what is it? Next on deck to get your citizenship. Shout out to Paris Inman. Good to see you. Thank you for being here. Okay, so we got a few things going on. Nisha said, I just got my results from African Ancestry and she's ready to go to Sierra Leone. Well, get ready. Make sure you tune in next week and you can hear about everything that happened. We probably have some pictures and a few videos to show. But you can also check us out on Instagram and on Facebook, because we were definitely posting and others were posting during the trip. So it's Mother's Day coming up. Sunday is Mother's Day, and there's so much excitement around Mother's Day. First of all, we have a special offer. So for those of you who are looking to get your next test kit or looking to get your first test kit, if you go to africanancestry.com, you can take advantage of our Mother's Day special, where we are offering 10% off of any test kit with the code Happy Mother's Day. So this is a perfect time for you to trace your maternal ancestry and honor the matriarchs, all those women who made it possible for you to be here doing what you're doing right now. You can find out where that woman, that original woman, came from before the transatlantic slave trade, before all these places you guys are representing from, before Trinidad, before Cali, before Chicago, before Alabama. There was a woman in Africa, most likely, and we can tell you about her ancestry, the traditions and cultural practices of her ethnic group or tribe. Now, if anybody lives in the DMV, we're also doing another special specifically for the DMV. I don't know how many of you all know about Lee's Flower and Card Shop, but they are the oldest Black-owned flower and card shop in Washington, D.C. They've been on U Street in Northwest, which is formerly the Black Broadway of the world, for 75 years. And the granddaughters of the founders, the Lee family, why am I drawing a blank? Christy and her sister, they have partnered with us. So we have a special offer, a package. You can send flowers and ancestry this Mother's Day. So you can purchase an African Ancestry test kit and send your mother, your auntie, your godmother, the woman your wife, your sister, the special woman in your life. You can send them a special Mother's Day gift this year. So we can honor your mother today and honor your ancestors that came before us. So check that out at africanancestry.com. If you're from the DMV, this offer will automatically pop up. And if you're not from the DMV, but you have some women in your life in the DMV, feel free. You can send them this offer as well. So that's something new that we're trying, partnering with another Black woman-owned business to make things happen. So the other thing that's happening for Mother's Day is this film that's coming out. What y'all know about In Our Mother's Gardens? If you don't know, you're about to find out. We have a very special guest with us this evening. Her name is Shantrelle P. Lewis. And Shantrelle is the director of In Our Mother's Gardens that's going to be airing starting tomorrow. Tomorrow night is going to air on Netflix. Yes, we have a Netflix director as part of the African Ancestry family, and I'm very, very proud of her and excited to see her work. Shantrelle has started learning about her genealogy as a child, and she discovered that she is a descendant of Henry or Henri Christophe, the first king of Haiti. So not only is she African ancestry family, but she's the descendant of royalty, although I don't think I needed her pedigree to know that. She received a bachelor's degree from Howard University in African American Studies, which led her to a career teaching African American Studies here in Washington, D.C. at Hyde Leadership Public Charter School. She then went on to earn a master's in African American Studies from Temple University, and she is overflowing with knowledge, history, spirituality, and creativity. In 2012, she became an Andy Warhol curatorial fellow. And in 2014, she was part of the UN's program for people of she was a fellow with the United Nations program for people of African descent. As if that's not enough. Today, Shantrelle and her husband, Tony, own the very popular company website, shopblack.com, a Philadelphia-based effort to connect Black-owned businesses with the customers, partners, and resources needed to succeed. Those little 4 bullet points don't even begin to describe Shantrelle. And so I'm just going to bring her on here because you all will see. She participated in the Remember Who You Are Identity Summit last year. She and Tony had an awesome session. She has been a curator. She's all these different things. What's up, Shantrelle? I don't even know how to introduce you. I'm all stuttering trying to introduce you.
I would say Aquaba, but you didn't just come back from Ghana. You came back from Sierra Leone, from Salon. You Salon, baby. Girl, that's amazing.
It was such a good trip. It was such a good trip.
I can tell by those pictures. I was like, y'all living your entire best life.
Girl, and I was just kind of floating along. You know, my ancestry, like yours, goes back to people living in the Fulani people living in Nigeria. And so I was just kind of like, okay, when are we going to get our citizenship?
Wow.
Really a good time. It's so good to see you. Congratulations.
Thank you, sis. Thank you so much. I'm like, thank you, big sis.
We had to talk to Ava DuVernay's people to make sure that we could get you
for live and direct. The day before, the evening of, I'm like, I haven't slept in like about a month ever since the announcement went out. I haven't eaten. I'm like, the butterflies are crazy. And I'm so excited. I'm so excited. Oh, Lord, child. I'm like, I feel like I need a drink.
When you're ready to go to sleep, have that drink. That'll help knock you out. Tell everybody what In Our Mother's Gardens is, because we're just happy about it, but everybody doesn't know what it is yet.
In Our Mother's Gardens is my directorial debut. It is a film about Black women and our mothers and our grandmothers. It's a story of Black women's resilience. It's a story of like how Black women got over, in the by and by. It's a story of the spirituality that's been the glue of who we are as a people and as a community. Is a story of resilience. It's a story of lineage and heritage. And it's a story of self-care and healing. And lastly, more importantly, the most importantly, it's a story of our ancestors and the need for us to call the names of our ancestors and to acknowledge them, to recognize them as living parts of our community, and to call on them in times of need, to say that we remember them, and, you know, to help us, you know, move forward as a community.
Now, where did the motivation for this documentary come from, Shantrelle? Because I mean, it's got everything I read about you. Just these few bullet points are evident in the work that you've done with the film. But what made you decide to do this?
I mean, you know, I had to, like, I'm always mindful about, like, I talk very much so about my spirituality, as you know, and I'm very open about it, about being a Yoruba Lukumi Shango priest, Kawo Kabiosile, and ancestor veneration is at the core of what we do. And there was a reading that I got one year, a few years back, that said I needed to be doing some work around women because, you know, most of my work was around Black dandyism and Black masculinity and Black men. I'm like, what? I'm obedient. And, you know, so I felt like, you know, now was the time, as I was unpacking stuff with my own mom and my own genealogy, you know. And so I knew that story about Henri Christophe, but it was the past couple of years that I was able to trace my history back all the way to the 1700s to free Black people who came to Philly from Haiti. And their son went down to New Orleans, learned French, then went up to Canada, was a part of the Underground Railroad, and then became a U.S. diplomat to Haiti, like under Frederick Douglass. So it's a genealogy piece. My daddy always made sure I knew genealogy. I always was close to, like, my grandparents, my great-grandparents. I always was told stories about, you know, my great-grandfather coming over from Jamaica and then going into Tuskegee, then teaching at Southern University in Baton Rouge. But, you know, again, I just wanted to unpack my own relationship too with my mama and, you know, just look at what does it take for us to, like, heal as a community. And, you know, Black women are like the bedrock of our community. And so in order for us, I was like, to us to move forward, then we have to kind of have this, like, air our dirty laundry, you know, as such, and have some really difficult and challenging but nuanced conversations about what it looks like to grow up as a Black girl being mothered by a Black woman, and all the generational baggage and stuff that comes with it, but all the beauty and the love and, you know, the warmth and all of that that comes with it as well. So, you know, I felt like that's a particular story that hadn't been told, and, you know, I was here to tell it.
Now, how'd you get the people to participate? Because you actually have women sitting on the couch on these beautiful, you know, in this beautiful background, telling these stories. Was it hard to convince people? Did you have to ask like 500 people in order to get 10 to participate?
No, I asked my friends, and the hardest thing was my friends, because they're boss ass women. So it's like the ones who would have enough time to come and sit down on my couch and have the conversation. But I went to Howard. So you were talking about Lee's Flower Shop. I remember Lee's on U Street. Yeah. And anytime, I mean, I was in college, so I wasn't really buying flowers like that. But if I had to buy flowers for something, I was definitely ordering them from Lee's. So, you know, going to Howard, I'm a part of the Howard Mafia. Like, you don't have to go far from, like, the White House to Hollywood to, you know, the medical profession, you know, to, you know, activism. Like, we're everywhere. You know, we roll deep. You know, generations. My husband went to Howard. My brother went to Howard. My Nigerian sister-in-law and her husband went to Howard. You know, my niece is gonna go to Howard. You know, so we roll deep. And I just asked my friends. You know, Tarana has been one of my close friends for over, I don't know, definitely over a decade, maybe 12 years or something like that. Probably longer than that, 15 years.
And Tarana is
the founder of the Me Too movement. Dr. Brittany Cooper, you know, one of the most influential Black feminist scholars of our generation. My homegirl from Howard, Reverend Dr. Teresa Timms, homegirl from Howard. Dr. Martha Moreno Vega, founder of the Caribbean Cultural Center, who is actually the woman who coined the term African, like the African diaspora. Most people don't know that, but it was Dr. Vega at the Caribbean Cultural Center, I think in the 80s, who coined the term the African diaspora when she had been doing a lot of research at Schomburg around the time she founded the center. And Dr. Martha Moreno Vega, Mama Coco, who was one of my former professors at Temple in Africana Studies, where I got my master's degree. So the list of people go on and on.
Is this a Howard documentary, Shantrelle? Is that what I hear you saying? This is
Howard
Mother's Garden.
All of them were not from Howard, but my producer, Jason Buckner, my co-producer, Josh E. Nelson, Brittany, Teresa, my one of my music score musicians, Willard Hill, Howard. So, we roll deep. But who else is in the film from Sierra Leone? Adama Delphine Fawundu, who was like one of Sierra Leone's like salon, like big time, internationally renowned artists. So
nice.
Yeah, but no, it was just like, getting people because I asked other friends of mine, but we're all like crazy busy schedules. And then I shot over the course of 3 years. So like 2018, 2019, and then during the pandemic. So it was like, who was, you know what? I wanted to make sure that my friends that I asked though, because I have so many other friends that I could have asked who are doing amazing and powerful work, but those who were on some level committed to self-care. That was important. Because that was the lens through which I entered, you know what I'm saying? And wanted to talk about like healing as I look at how African spirituality, traditional religions also is a tool of healing. And so I just wanted to make sure that folks are going, if they're not in therapy, or they're not like, they're having those conversations, they're doing that work, they're unpacking that work. So it was like my friends who are actually actively engaged in doing that work.
So what can we take away from this? Like, are there a couple of things that you hope that people will take away from the film?
Mostly, I mean, one that like, and for me is like, because I'm not Christian, I don't, the concepts of like grace and forgiveness is not, and I grew up, I talk about it. I grew up between the Baptist church and the Black Catholic Church of New Orleans, Louisiana. But like hoodoo and voodoo which are, African spiritual systems, traditional religions that came to us by way of Haiti, that have been by way of Benin, by way of Yoruba land. These are traditions and religions that have persisted and survived under the cloak of Catholicism for many years in Cuba, in Haiti, in Brazil, in Trinidad and Tobago, in Puerto Rico, and clearly New Orleans, the Gullah Islands. And so, there's been like this negative cloak that has, not even negative cloak, like this misrepresentation of African spirituality, like, oh, this is bad, it's evil, and it's devil worship. But that was used as a tool by white colonizers and plantation owners to keep us subjected as a people, because they knew it was the Haitian Revolution started off with a voodoo ceremony at Bois Camain. And so, those Haitians were saying like, nah, in order for us to be powerful and to be independent, we have to like acknowledge our gods, right? And so it's been a part of my work even more persistently as of late, that we recognize our ancestors. Even if people are not, ready to embrace African traditional religions, whether it's like Akan, Santeria, Lukumi, Candomblé, Vodou, Hoodoo, that at the very least, we called out the names of our ancestors. That's the very least. And so that's one thing. The other thing is that, also I was getting back to the whole thing about the mothers, is that I was saying that I don't, like the concept of forgiveness and grace is not really a part of my spiritual framework, but, having some compassion, particularly for those who are like, Gen Xers, and our parents were baby boomers, is like, these women were doing the best that they could. I'm just now, learning some things about my mama and her story, and that I never ever knew. And we would bump heads when I was young. She wanted to have like this little demure, quiet, does everything she's told little girl. And I was the exact opposite. I was loud. I don't think I was wild. I was just loud. So anything she had to say, I had 10,000 things to say back. Not disrespectfully, because I ain't play with her, you know, but like we bumped heads my whole, you know, majority of my life. And it's just in unpacking and listening to those stories and asking her more questions about her and my grandma, because I was always like, oh, they were super close. They were buku close. You know, it's like, oh, dang, like that's what happened. I was like, they were really doing the best that they could with what they had. And it's a privilege to talk about therapy. That therapy was Ayanna Van Zandt. Brittany Cooper talks about that. You know, it was Alice Walker. You know, what was on her book, Through the Valley or In the Valley?
Oh, Iyanla's book was, it had Valley in it.
I'm Googling it. The Value in the Valley, a Black woman's guide through life's dilemmas in 1996. You know, those were like the books that my mama also read, you know, and she was a social worker. She was a social worker, and she supported and helped so many other people. And she had like a very high job for the state of Louisiana. And, you know, but that was her therapy, you know, or they didn't talk about stuff because it was too painful. I would ask my grandmother, because I was a curious little girl, so I'm always asking her, like, oh, what was Algiers like? That's a part of New Orleans where the first enslaved Africans, people talk about Treme, but it's in Congo Square, but it was really in Algiers, which is across the river, that the first enslaved Africans were brought to Louisiana. They were disembarked there, and they came out taking rice seeds and okra seeds out of their hair, and, you know, planted it for sustenance. And then they were sold across the river in the French market. And then from there, they were like transported to like plantations up the Mississippi River and throughout the rest of the South. But that's where my maternal family is from. And so, you know, why did I bring that up? I don't even remember.
Girl, you have so much knowledge in your head. You were talking about learning about your mother and your grandmother and what they've gone through.
Oh, right. So, yeah.
And compassion for their lives.
So my grandmother got married when she was 16, you know. I got married at like 36 or something like that. You know what I mean? And so I'm like, I can't even imagine that. My mom got married when she was maybe like 23 because she was trying to get out of the house. And, you know, again, like there was a level of freedom. Like my travel has been a big part of who I am and my storytelling as well. I mean, I always say, I like to say, I've been to the blackest places on the planet. So Port-au-Prince, Salvador de Bahia, Santiago de Cuba, you know, Havana, Suriname, Paramaribo, you know, in Suriname. I mean, just Ghana, Nigeria, like the blackest places in Europe too, like the blackest neighborhoods, the Bijlmer in the Netherlands, like, you know, the UK. So I spent my whole adulthood traveling everywhere, and that has also really shaped me and like understanding the global Black experience that I met at Howard. Like, oh, Blackness is not a monolith. Even in Afro-America, like I was meeting friends from like Atlanta, and we grew up middle class in New Orleans, but when I went to Atlanta, them big ass houses they were living in the 90s, I'm like, shit, this is a different kind of middle class. Then I went to Boston where I met my best friend Benny, who was like one day talking to his dad in fluent Spanish, and Benny's darker than me, naturally curly hair, and I'm like, I know your ass don't be paying attention to Spanish, so how your Spanish is this good? And he was like, I'm Dominican. Growing up in New Orleans, I'm like, we had Black, white, Creole, Cajun, and Vietnamese. I'm like, what is the Dominican? Pray tell. And so when I go to his house, I remember my daddy was like, oh, that's them mango-eating Negroes. And I'm like, you so ignorant. And then I look on the table, there was a crate of mangoes. It's like, I was like, you know, first experience with mangoes. Like, so, I mean, it was at Howard that I learned that Blackness, even within the U.S., like our dialects, our soul food was different. New Orleans was not like Mississippi, not like Arkansas, not like Alabama, Georgia, Texas. We had our own thing, you know, and then I'm like this larger Black world. And the first time I traveled was like to the UK, and I was just like, it was intoxicating. I was like, I can't stop traveling. And so I've been doing that ever since.
So do you have I'm just throwing out questions because, child, you don't need an interviewer. You good on your own. But do you have a favorite place or a most memorable place?
I'll tell you this. I can tell you the top 3 most paradigm shifting trips that I've ever been on.
Okay.
The first was in 2004 in Brazil, because that's where I came in contact with Yoruba spirituality that I was aware of for the first time. Okay. Come to find out, like my professor, Dr. Sandra Milner Ibaye, who passed away, she went through her initiation my senior year. She's my line sister Gingy, who's a doctor in DC, and her older sister Coffee, who's an attorney here in Philly, and their younger sister Peta started the Ida B. Wells educational curriculum project. But she was their mom, and she went through her initiation, but I didn't know what she was doing. I was like, why Dr. Milner got on white? So that was the first place where I came in contact with African spirituality, like Yoruba religion, for the first time. And I was like, oh my God, what are these Black women wearing this all white and they got these colorful beads on? And I was like, I didn't get the memo. And then we go to these temples in Brazil, the Taieras, and like these Madre Santos, who are these Black women who have been preserving sacred religions from the continent for hundreds of years. And I was like blown away. So I came back and I was like, I need to be a part of that, right? Mm-hmm. And my grandmother was like, you ain't going to church? And I was like, I kept telling her no. So then finally I was like, she's like, did you go to church this Sunday? I was like, yeah. She's like, oh, really? I was like, yeah, the Church of Africa. So I went to African church. You know what I mean? So so that first trip, Brazil, that changed the course of my life. One of the women that I met on that trip was going to be my professor in my Africana Studies program at Temple in 2 weeks. And that's Dr. Coco, who is also now my elder god sister. So that happened. The second most influential trip was me going to, Zenobia Palmer said, you take a guess, Zenobia, what my zodiac sign is. She was like, I'll go to the Netherlands. I was going to study Black Dutch art, right? I get there and I'm like, all these Black people in the Belma. I was like, are there Black people in the Netherlands? Like, only thing I know about Dutch people were like, they were white and with blonde hair, right? And blue eyes. So I go there, there's all these Black people and their names are like Kofi, Kwame, Yaba, Ya, all these days of the week names. So I'm like, oh, you must be a Khan. You must be Ghanaian. They're like, no, I'm from Suriname. And I'm like, Suriname? So then I'm looking at this book and I'm like, oh, clearly the Dutch must have brought Akan and Ashanti people to Suriname. No. And then they went from Suriname to travel to the Netherlands, and where a lot of them have settled to today. So that changed my life, because then I started going back and forth. I lived there for a little while as an Andy Warhol curatorial scholar. And then I went to Aruba, Curacao, and Suriname, studying Black Dutch cultural traditions. Because we talk about the diaspora, about the Spanish-speaking diaspora. We talk about the French-speaking diaspora, the Portuguese-speaking diaspora, but nobody talks about the Dutch-speaking diaspora. And I think it's largely because of the language barrier, right? And so that Dutch is like, most Black Dutch people either speak Dutch, they speak Sranan Tongo if they're from the Suriname, or they speak Papiamentu if they're from Aruba or Curacao. And so those are not necessarily languages that we have access to and reading those books and whatnot. So I've been very committed to studying Black Dutch art and history and culture, and kind of helping to amplify that on the largest stage. I started working on a film project about that like 10 years ago. And so that was the second most significant trip. And then the third one by far was my trip to South Africa that I took right before COVID hit. My friend Hadia, who's from DC as well, and she's also a big genealogy head, and she can't wait to take her African ancestry test. Hadia and I was like, look, I don't know why, but we need to go to South Africa now. Like, we need to go. And this was like January of last year. And she was like, oh, got all this work to do and blah, 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 blah. She's an amazing designer. She does like ceramics, like these gorgeous ceramic sculptures. And she just does so much. And so I was like, South Africa is big on design. And I'm like, you know, you need to go there for design, but I just want to be inspired by aesthetics and something in my spirit. It was like my spirit. And we go there and have the most magical, serendipitous, like the beyond, like, and I've traveled, you know, I didn't been a lot of places. I didn't been a whole lot of places. And it was like, we met Go-Go Esther, who is the woman in the belly elder, you know. She's never at home when people tour her house. Shout out to my soror Sheree. Oh, by the way, I'm a Delta. I don't know if I said that, but you know, Sheree started Tastemakers Africa. So we went on a trip. We met our tour guide, my friend Viva, or our friend Viva now. And so he takes us there, and she's never home. She was home. So we got to sit at the feet of this like world-renowned elder. And then we got back literally like 3 days or something like that before the borders were closed.
Wow.
And I had such a good time. I was trying to buy property there to like open up a hotel. And I met this woman named Tokozani who does work with girls who are survivors of sexual assault, called the Untitled Foundation. I'm probably butchering that, but it means forgiveness. And they, you know, like live in this settlement as like the slums. And these girls were so resilient and so joyful and so amazing. I was like, I need to be on your board, sis, to help you build a community center. So after this film comes out, I'm about to raise money to help Tokozani get this center for these girls. But that was like a life-changing experience.
Wow. One of the things you mentioned, Shantrelle, and someone had a question about, was growing up in the Christian faith and then making the switch to African spirituality, being called to the Yoruba. What was that like? Was it difficult? Did you have any challenges making the switch?
Oh, I see my godmother is on the call, Mama Oseye M. Chawi. So it was not, because at the time, you know, I grew up very devout Black Catholic. And I mean, I used to go to church so much that my mama complains. Like, I was like, who complains about their daughter, their teenage daughter going to church? That's ridiculous. So that we go back and forth about it. You always ripping and running up to that back and forth to church. I'm like, girl, you tripping. So I was always very spiritual. Like in my journal when I was growing up, I would talk about boys, because I was boy crazy, and I'm a Gemini. So I was a very flirtatious, boy crazy Gemini. I would talk about books because I'm a Gemini and I'm obsessed with reading and learning. I'm in my office upstairs, but downstairs is like one of my libraries that is like, I have like over 200 books on African spirituality alone. And then I talked about God. And my dad's mom died when I was 5, and she would come and visit me as a child. And I would go, my mama's daddy died when I was 16. I would start going to the cemetery and just chilling there, writing in my journal, praying, meditating, you know, by myself, you know, communing with my ancestors. And so, like many, you know, like again, the Haitians, the Cubans, the Brazilians who practice Catholicism, that structure of, so what a lot of people don't know is African spirituality, majority of the African traditional religions, like, and there's like probably thousands of different systems that exist, but you know, they're monotheistic. There's a supreme God. In Yoruba, God is Olodumare, Olofi. And then there are the ancestors, and there are in Yoruba, Orisha. In Akan spirituality, there's the Abuson. There's ancestors in Abuson. In Haitian Vodou and Benin Vodou, there's God, ancestors, and the Loa, right? So it's like a trinity, right? And so when people talk about, they used to get the Holy Ghost, so you was getting possessed with a spirit. Where'd that come from? People talk about old time religion. I'm like, these people were practicing their own traditions. So it was easy, like the breakdown and the similarities between the saints and Orisha was easy for me to understand. I think like the more and more I learned about Christianity in college and reading, and it wasn't like I was learning from anti-Christian folks. It was just learning history, like learning that the person who wrote Amazing Grace was the captain of a slave ship, and the people who said stop killing and exterminate all the brutes. I don't know if y'all talked about that, but y'all need to watch Exterminate All the Brutes. Anybody interested in history has to watch that by Raoul Peck, Exterminate All the Brutes on HBO. So I was like, this don't sound right. So now with my critical thinking made me always wonder, well, if all of this was happening by white people and a religion that they gave to us, then what were we practicing? And how is that wrong if we were living our best lives on the continent and these people came and stole us away and raped us and beat us and maimed us and took our languages and did the horrific and lynched us and did all these horrific things, like we're practicing their religion. So that made me start I was being a critical thinker. My daddy always taught me to think critically. So I'm like, well, what were we doing? And why was it so wrong? And so I'm reading and I'm reading, I'm learning, I'm reading. So I started gradually moving away from Christianity. So by the time I meet my godmother, Mama Oseye in Brazil, and I'm like cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, like at being enamored, like, oh my God. And I'm like, this is like a secret society because, she's been taking people back and forth to Brazil for, I think, almost 40 years or maybe 40 years. And she has a deep relationship because she goes there as this African-American and she's meeting them. And these Brazilian women are like, how do you know all of this stuff about these, like there are Black people in America that practice our religion, and then she went to Nigeria, same thing. And it's like, how do you Black American, African American know this stuff? It's like the songs, the prayers. And so I'm getting chills right now talking about it. So of course my family was like, what the hell? My mama like, oh, you need to be going to church. I already told y'all how my grandma was acting. But it's even to today, when I was talking about how anxious and nervous I was, my mama was like, oh, girl, this is going to be amazing. Talk to your ancestors. I'm like, this is the same lady when they want me to put up an altar up in the house. Look, my first ancestor altar I put up in the house after I moved back home after Katrina, I had like rum on there and some other stuff. And she was like, Then she said, I don't know why you got that rum on your altar because your grandma used to drink VO. I'm like, girl.
So did you switch it to VO?
I did. I'm like, we got to get the lady what she like. Glad y'all see her. Y'all will meet her in the film. My grandma was like, she'd be lit. She'd be like, she was a happy drunk. When Gladys had that sauce in her system, baby. Okay. Oh my goodness. It was so funny. So, she would be like, oh, I think this one need a spiritual bath and, all of that. So, she's like, she still go to church she could quote Bible verses better than anybody that I know. And she'd be up in church every Sunday with her hats and all of that. She's a Zeta, by the way. But, in a time, when times be rough too, she'd be like, spiritual bath. What I need to do? Ask Mama Oseye, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, girl, why don't you go to church? So my family, I've been a free spirit always all my life. And so they could not do anything but accept it. Even my in-laws who are Nigerian, very Christian, they were not having this, ancestors know. Tony hates when I try to talk Nigerian. Like, he hates it. I'm like, my accent sometimes works, sometimes it's not so great because that New Orleans keeps coming out. But they were like, what is this? My sister-in-law one time was like, what is this Shango's business Shantrelle is talking about on her page? And so I prayed when it came to the wedding that they would be so overflowed with the beauty and the positivity and the love that, I just be telling her now, I'm like, oh yeah, girl, in the reading, Shango said this. And she'd be like, I'm like, listen, I'm just waiting for them to come to the light side. Okay.
So Shantrelle, tell me this, how did you're steeped in genealogy. You are clearly an Africana studies scholar and expert. How did finding your African ancestry impact you?
Girl, so that was 15 years ago. I know y'all celebrate 17 years this year. Congratulations.
18.
So if it's 18 years ago, then it might have been 16 years ago that I discovered my ancestry. So I had my daddy take the test since I knew more about his side of the family. I wanted to see what his, patrilineal lineage is. So he took the test and Hurricane Katrina hit. And the results were down probably in the flood somewhere. And I'll never forget, I reached out to you. I'm about to cry. I'm just thinking about, I'm just like emo about the whole journey that I've gone through. I remember reaching out to you and I was like, you know, my family is in New Orleans. You know, these results probably, you know, done floated down the Mississippi River in the Gulf of Mexico somewhere. Like, could you send me the results? And you did. And it was like at a moment when like, you know, at a moment when, you know, my family lost so much and it was so much pain and trauma. It was like this beautiful moment, like when I was afraid of my heritage and my history and my culture being like wiped out forever. Because our cultural institutions, a lot of them were lost, and you know, artifacts like family, you know, photos and letters and like Bibles, and you know, like there were people in my family that lost everything. You know, my grandmother died not long after that, so did my great grandmother, and you know, to see like we had this lineage to trace us back to Nigeria, like to the Igbo people, which makes sense because a lot of Haitians or Igbo.
Mhm.
So you know, it was like such a it was like I can't even describe the moment clearly. I'm all emotional. It was yeah, I can't even describe like how that you know, it helped to save my soul, you know. So yeah, you know, since then I've always felt I went to Brazil the year before that, and I knew that a lot of clearly Nigerians had been transported to Brazil. There's even Brazilian quarters in Nigeria, because what people don't realize is that there was always a back and flow between Nigeria and Brazil. Because if you leave the coast of Nigeria and you don't like even know where you're going to sail, and you land in Brazil, and so there was always an exchange that was happening back and forth. And so there are even people in Brazil with like the last name like De Silva, you know. And so like I've always felt the connection with Nigerian people wherever I went in a diaspora. So I was like, I must be, because when I was in Brazil, they were like talking to me like, oh, sister, and it was like, obrigada, you know, in that sexy ass Portuguese that Brazilians be talking in. And I was like, they were talking to me, and I'm like, I don't understand nothing you're saying, because, you know, I'm Black American. And they were like, no, but they're like, but you look just like us. And I know, I'm like, I don't understand you. And so there was one day we went to this like community samba. So I'm like sambaing my ass off. And so they're like looking at me and they're like, how did you learn how to do that? And I'm like, oh, because I'm Black. And they were like, oh, there's like negra, like, you know, because no, I know what I said. I said, I'm looking at y'all. I'm looking at y'all doing it. And they were like, oh, negra, like you Black. That's how you got this. So, you know, yeah, that was yeah, so that was how it impacted my life. And so then I just did my maternal lineage finally this year, and found out also that side of the family is Nigerian. I also had, so that's a small tiny branch of my family tree in Minneapolis, and the matriarch of our family passed away at the beginning of right before COVID hit. She was 99, my Aunt Dorothy Ibaye, and so I had her daughter take the test to see what my mama Ada Ibaye, my mama's daddy's mama's heritage was, also Yoruba. So it's like Igbo, Fulani, Yoruba by Nigeria. So when I met Tony, I was like, hey, Igbo girl, you know, when he slid into my DMs. So yeah, it had
with that when he slid into my DMs. That's your story, and you sticking to it.
That's what he did. I can show y'all the screenshots. I can show y'all the receipts.
Oh my goodness, Shantrelle, you are a delight. Everybody is loving you. You're getting all these hearts. People love your spirit. They love your authenticity. They love the fact that you're honoring your spirituality. They love your mind. You have so much in your heart and mind that you want to share. Beverly says you need hours with an audience, and she's right in the front row. Yeah, this is incredible. I want to remind everybody that one of the main reasons we're talking with Shantrelle today, right now, is because tomorrow on Netflix is the debut of her documentary in our mother's gardens, and that is why we're here. I expect matter of fact, I want to see some flowers. Can y'all whoever's gonna watch this tomorrow, I want to see some flowers in the comments. If you're gonna watch this tomorrow, we need everybody to watch this film so that we can get the next. So we will have seen her directorial debut, and then we can see her next film and her next film and her next film. As you can tell, she is full of stories. She is full of experiences. There we go. Now I'm seeing some flowers. She is full of passion, and we need to support this sister. And she's family. I'm sure that had Shantrelle and I known each other, I'm sure I would have been in the film, but I'm going to position myself for the next one. Shantrelle, I appreciate you being here. Faye Page is here. Shout out to Faye Page, who was trying to get us together forever. Oh, we got Edleen in the house. Oh, this is wonderful. All these flowers, these are your flowers, Shantrelle. These flowers are for you. We got all kinds of flowers. I appreciate you sharing your garden with us. You're the world's favorite gardener. I've decided you're our favorite African spiritual gardener because you bring out so much. You're planting so many seeds and bringing out so much from the earth and from the spirit. Is there anything else you want us to know before I let you go? Because I'm sure you've got other
everybody's like blowing me up right now. Like, oh, we got a big day ahead. No, I just thank you. I love you. I'm so appreciative. Thank everybody. I can't wait for everybody to see the film. Tag me, watch it with your mom, your grandmother. Aunts, tag us in our mother's garden, sign up for the newsletter, and just thank you so much, sis. And I'm looking forward to doing more work, with y'all in the Ancestry family, the African Ancestry family.
Yes. Thank you, Shantrelle. I'm going to let you go and get ready.
Thank you.
All right, take care. So everybody, thank you so much for throwing up those flowers for Shantrelle. As you can tell, she is just, I don't even know how to describe her. She's the bomb. She's all of that. And she is part of the African Ancestry family. Please watch the film. Please share it. Please tag her in Our Mother's Gardens, Shantrelle P. Lewis. There it is. We got it up on the screen. And remember that you can celebrate your mother and your mother's gardens with an African Ancestry test kit. We have a Match Clan test, which will tell you the ancestry of your mother's line going back 500 to 2,000 years. Anybody can take the test. And when you take it, then nobody else on that branch of the tree has to take it. So when my mother took it, I didn't have to take it. Her siblings didn't have to take it. Their kids didn't have to take it. My grandmother didn't have to take it. None of her siblings had to take it. None of their kids. One test will give you an ancestry answer for an entire branch of the family. And you can get 10% off of that test now through Sunday at AfricanAncestry.com when you use the code Happy Mother's Day. Please join us next week. We're going to have, I just decided this about 15 minutes before we started, but I'm sure we can work it out. The people, African Ancestry family members who traveled to Sierra Leone over the last 2 weeks, I'm going to have some of them on to talk about the experience of tracing your ancestry and then actually literally going home, getting a passport that says you are now a citizen of Sierra Leone, and what that experience was like. So please stay tuned. Marquita says she just sent back her kit today. I saw somebody else saying that they're anxiously awaiting their results, and we are anxiously awaiting being able to get you your results. Shout out to Edleen Elba. When we talk about Sierra Leone, I'm just going to give her a quick shout out. She is an incredible sisterpreneur in Sierra Leone who is helping to prepare people for the workforce, helping people with workforce education and training. She was a gracious host to us when we were in Sierra Leone. We met her on our very first night there, or our second night there. And thanks to her, I met some wonderful designers in Sierra Leone, and I now have a friend and a sister. So thank you, Edleen, for joining us. And Regina, you said your cousin was there. Nice. This is so cool. Harvey says, I can't wait to get my results and go home. Shout out to Tanyelle. We traced you to the Kanuri people. Dina, you're anxiously awaiting. They'll be there. They'll be there very soon. Listen, I just traveled and I wore my mask as much as I possibly could, except for when we were outside. I've done everything I can do to stay safe and stay protected. And I pray that you do too. Please continue to social distance. Please continue to wear your masks when appropriate. Please continue to support your immune system. And please continue to support your mental health and that of those who you love. We are honored to be here and do this work with you, and we want everybody to make it through these trying times as safely as possible. Until, Anissa, okay, one more question. Anissa wants to know, do you have to have specific ancestries to Sierra Leone to get citizenship? Anissa, you have to have traced your maternal ancestry or your paternal ancestry to one of the ethnic groups of Sierra Leone. So I hope that answers your question. Until we meet again, everyone, may you be happy, may you be healthy, and may you be whole. And shout out to Wendi for holding it down on the production side. Have a very good night. Bye-bye.